Welcome to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a drop of straight talk you can't get anywhere else. We discuss the whiskeys to drink, music to listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I'm your host, Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Tonight's guest, former senior executive with Jack Daniels and Uncle Nearest Distilleries, principal of Moore Whiskey Consultancy, Sherrie Moore. Hey, what you drinking? Okay, guys, this conversation literally has been in the making since August 15th of 2021. If you've been listening for any amount of time, you know how much affection I have for the Uncle Nearest brand, but just how much reverence I have for Jack Daniels in general, being, just at the cornerstone of what we think of when we talk about whiskey and bourbon. Well, today on this show, I want to present to my audience Miss Sherrie Moore. Miss Sherrie, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I just got back from a week in Kentucky, which is always good, even though it's in Tennessee, and I like to go up there. I like Tennessee whiskey, but I like bourbon too. I went up there for a 3-day conference on, guess what? Whiskey.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be an incredible education. And like I said, I've been wanting to have this conversation with you since we met, when I happened to check off a wish list opportunity, and that is to tour the Uncle Nearest Distillery there in Shelbyville. And I go in. And one of the people that happened to be in the little tour guide group with me seemed to know a whole lot about whiskey. And I was like, what? Why does she know so much? And come to find out, she was not only one of the members of the leadership team at Uncle Nearest, but she was the head of operations. And from that point on, I just really started manifesting and pestering you to try to make this conversation happen. So finally we're here, but I'm ahead of myself. My audience is so disoriented right now because I haven't started this out the right way. So let me start this out the right way. So what you drinking?
Me? I am drinking some Jack Daniel 10-year-old, and it is delicious.
Now, Jack Daniel 10-year, is that something we can find? Because I don't know that. Is that like readily available?
No, it's not regularly. They just do certain batches. And so this is their second batch of 10-year-old. And they've got 12-year-old that's come out twice, and they're fixing to release a 14-year-old.
Ooh.
It's going to be nice. Can't wait for that one.
Now, we're going to be able to find that anywhere outside of Tennessee and Kentucky?
Yes.
All right.
I just don't know exactly what markets, but it's out there.
Fantastic. Well, hey, I'm really torn because I've got some pretty good Jack Daniels juice here, the single barrel proof that I have been nursing for a while. I mean, the label says 2017, so I've had this for a bit, but it's 132 proof. So this is grown folk stuff. And then I've also been nursing this Uncle Nearest 1820, which is 111 proof. And as you can see, I barely got an inch left. Because no matter how nice I am to everyone I talk to, they tell me, yeah, you're going to have to wait a while before you see that again. So I don't know
Especially the age. How long have you had that?
Wow, that's a very good question. I got this when this first came out. So whatever year was the first year that they came out I really don't know the answer to that question.
I think that was some of the first batches. So you got some of the good stuff.
Yeah, this is aged 11 years, but I don't know what year it was released. I think I'm going to hit what I think I might be able to find at some point. And that's this Jack Daniels single barrel This is some of Tennessee's finest. And I'm gonna pour just a little bit here, but I'm gonna pour it in my Uncle Nearest glass. So how's that? And we're gonna pour that in, and this is why. Cheers!
Cheers.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that just means I need to really enjoy this. So while I really enjoy this, I would love for you to share your background because it's more than the time that we met at Uncle Nearest. You've got a background that really does speak about whiskey. You've been around this for a long time, holding major responsibility for making sure that not only is the product produced, put in bottles, but that people like me can find it. Talk a little bit about your background. Go back as far as you want to go, because you've even got some heritage that even extends before you in the whiskey business. So talk a little bit, and I'm going to try my darndest to be quiet and not gush.
And and I need to be concise. Well, it really started my great grandmother, Miss Mary Bobo. She ran a boarding house. It was really a hotel and then became a boarding house. And she started that in 1908. She wanted me to come live with her after I graduated from college. Of course, I already spent a lot of time with her. I wasn't that far away, but she wanted me to come live with her. And I said, well, if I could get a job, I would. I said, because I got to have money to go to school. Well, she was already serving meals for Jack Daniels. So she called her contact at Jack in marketing and said, Sherrie needs a job. I want her to come live with me. So she made one phone call. I got a phone call an hour later and started to work in 2 days. So I've never filled out a job application. So I went there during college and working summers and weekends. But my grandfather was over new construction there. And so it was fun to be in the buildings where he worked. I had a gentleman that my grandfather hired that worked for me, and he retired under me. And those are just such special moments when you've got that family connection. Lim Motlow, Jack Daniels didn't have any children, and his nephew started working with him before he died, and he was already doing the operations for him. So that was my great uncle. So I always say, though, there's two sides of the family. There's the side with money and the side without. So guess which side I was? I was Kim. I didn't have any money. So, but I did have academic scholarship. And so I was going to college and Jack Daniels. So I had my academic scholarship, paid tuition. And then my work on the summers and weekends kept me from going into debt at school. So, and part of my scholarship, I had to work for a chemistry professor. Well, it so happened he was doing consulting work for Jack Daniels. So while I was in college, I was doing research on tannins in the barrels, white oak versus French oak, things to do with spent stillage. So it's just like I was destined to work there. I never had any intention to work there, full time. I was a chemistry major working on it. And then when I graduated, I thought, why should I leave here? So I called, we didn't have a human resources department. I called the plant manager, secretary, and I said, I think I want to work here. And I said, do you think y'all have a job? And about 2 weeks later, she called me back and she said, are you biology or chemistry? I said, chemistry. That's all she asked. Didn't ask for my transcript. And then about a week later, she called and I started in quality control after I graduated. So I worked part-time at the visitor center. And that doesn't sound like that great a foundation, but it was so good to connect with the consumers because not everybody that goes in operation connects with the consumers. So when I saw the loyalty these consumers had for Jack Daniels, then it made me have just that much more passion for making sure that we kept it consistent, that we kept it good, because I had the faces of the people that were drinking it. And I know you like business books. I've always wondered about my journey till I read the book Outlier.
Mm.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh my gosh, cornerstone.
I love that book. Love that book. And I realized I was at the right place at the right time. But I put in my 10,000 hours of work. That's the other one. You've got to work. And so I just was at the right place at the right time. People think that I probably had a very hard time being a woman in a man's world in the 70s and early 80s. And actually, it was the opposite. They just saw me as Sherrie because I'd started there when I was 18. So they just kind of watched me grow up. And I didn't come in there like, oh, I'm woman, hear me roar. I just came in there as Sherrie. And I think I probably at times, we all in our work life, somebody dismisses you, whether you're male, female, whatever. And I didn't pay any attention to them because I was having too much fun making
Wow.
whiskey and learning. So that's a little bit. My other thing I want to add about my journey that I think is unique is when I started, the average seniority was probably 35 years at Jack
Mm.
Daniels. And we had a lot of people that didn't finish eighth grade, may have just gone to sixth grade. But they had been making whiskey for 30, 40 years, and they knew the sounds, they knew the smells. So I got that education from those people, and I wouldn't trade that for anything because they would teach me things that I could have never learned just staying in the lab. But I also worked for a company with a great Brown Foreman on Jack Daniels, and they have a good research and development. So I also got to work with people with PhDs. So I was in this middle place with sixth grade and PhDs, and they both added to my education and added to my life.
Wow, that's a fascinating story, and you're absolutely right. I mean, to be able to navigate and go between a PhD conversation as well as a sixth grade education, and to be able to translate in my work, I used to call it the back of the house to the front of the house, right? And the ability to go both as a leader, it's important because if you can't talk to the PhDs, then you can't really keep your insights fresh. But if you can't talk to the sixth graders, nothing's going to happen.
No, you probably have seen that curve, the Denning Kruger curve. Have you ever seen it? You'll have to look it up, but it has an axis that says competence, and then on the bottom, no, competence is going up, and then going at the bottom is competence. And how easy it is that you start learning and you think you have figured out, but you're really at the peak of stupidity. And then the more you learn, you find out how much more there is to learn. And if you watch it, no matter how much you learn, your competence goes up, but you never go to that level of competence you had when you're at the peak of stupidity. So I always say that as I was trying to go up that peak of stupidity, there was some guy going, girl, your college didn't do you any good. Get back down here with us. You don't know what's going on. So I never got to climb very high on the peak of stupidity because there was somebody knocking me down.
Wow.
They go, your college education ain't going to help you here, Missy. You're going to have to live. So it ended up being a very good education. They probably kept me more grounded and humble.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And then talk just briefly about how you're going along. You got this great career at Jack Daniels. You're able to navigate between the PhDs and the sixth grade education, and you got the respect of all these folks that have been there for a while. You got the keys to the castle, and it sounds like you decide, it's time to retire from Jack Daniels, right off into the sunset, and just kind of enjoy the fruit of your labor, the fruit of your labor. What happened?
Well, and I don't know whether it was a good decision or not, but it was that's all I had done was work at Jack Daniels. And I enjoyed it, but at the same time, I was a single mother, three sons, and here they were in their early 20s, getting out of college, and it just seemed like we were supposed to do something together. So I moved out of that arena to see, can I do anything but make whiskey? I knew I could make whiskey, but could I do anything else? And so my sons and I started a concrete company. And then, so this is why I tell you, I don't know if it was a good decision. And we were already doing industrial jobs and had moved into that. Everything was going well. And one of my sons absolutely loves concrete, loves it. So here we go down this path. And then construction and recession came. That was 2007, 2008. And that is when I realized I should not have left. No, I was enjoying it, but the whiskey industry, we're kind of insulated from recession because people drink when times are good. And guess what they do when times are bad? They drink. It's the luxury. And I was like, oh, I've never felt what the economy was doing being in the whiskey world. But in one way, I kind of regret the decision. But in another way, I got a real education on running a business, how much money it takes for cash flow. I had no idea. It's one thing when it's the company's money, it's another one when it's yours for the cash flow.
Boy,
And just how the economy can affect other industries. Because when you're with whiskey, you don't know it. So it's a good lesson for me. I don't know if it was fun, but it was good. It's humbling. Because then to get a job, you were almost just staying busy and hoping that you broke even. And then I was doing real estate, and of course it was affected too. But I went along and I was happy. Read a lot of books, slowed down. My pace of life changed. Had more time for spiritual theology books and entertained people from South Africa, authors that I'd read their book and entertained them. So in another way, it was such a good time for me. Very good time in my life. But then I got back in.
yeah. Tell that story about how you got back in. I've heard you talk about this, and it's kind of it seems like just chance of luck, but your reputation kind of preceded you.
Well, no, it's actually Keith and Fawn Weaver, founders of Uncle Nearest, were in Lynchburg. And I kind of knew about the article, but of course, we all knew about Uncle Nearest, but we also knew about John Tolley. We knew names that other people didn't know. So it wasn't too big a deal to us when the article came out in New York Times in Lynchburg. And then when they came, we're like, oh, this is a big deal. And my cousin met them first and told them that the Dan Call farm, which is the location where Dan Call first made whiskey, and Jack, as an orphan, was living with him. And of course, Uncle Nearest was there. And that farm happened to be for sale. And my cousin said, here, I want you to meet Sherrie. My cousin Judy said, I want you to meet Sherrie. She can show you that property. So that's how I met Keith and Fawn. And I took them to a horse show here in Shelbyville, Tennessee. It was the last night. And the horse that won was so funny. His name was Honors.
Wow.
And so, and I think that's a word she already had. But it was funny that was the name of the horse that won that night. Showed them the property. And then, so I'm just the real estate agent. And then just in conversation, I said, oh, yeah, I retired from Jack Daniels. Well, at that time, she was writing a book, so it didn't mean anything. But then when she decided to start the brand, we were already connected. So that's when I came back into the industry.
I mean, just such an incredible story. No, I mean, you've had this long career. Have you even seen a job application? You're probably on the other side of it.
No, I'm an outlier. I'm no smarter than anybody else, but I've been at the right place at the right time.
And again, I love hearing that story because it talks about how you have, to your point, you have to put in the hours, you have to be ready, because getting an opportunity that you're not ready for is worse than not getting an opportunity. But you were ready, and when that opportunity came, boy, did you take advantage of it. Well, you are probably more qualified than almost anyone that I've talked to help me answer this question, because I like to try to get my guests to help me explain the significance of the name of this daggum podcast. Because for me, it comes together because this is the way I think about things. Just extraneous things kind of come together in my head in kind of a cool way. So for me, whiskey is kind of a metaphor for doing what you enjoy with the folks you enjoyed with. Just is this expression of passion. Whether they're sixth grade education, whether they're PhD, we just gonna get together because this is what we enjoy doing. So that element of it. Jazz for me, the metaphor is how do you get from where you are to where you need to be, even when there's no sheet music in front of you? How do you just figure it out to make a success out of whatever situation you find yourself in? Because the rules don't always work. And so for me, that's the metaphor of jazz. And then leadership is this action word. There's action associated with leadership. And for me, nobody accomplishes anything until someone stands up and takes an action to start. And so for me, I like all three literally, but I also love the metaphor. So that's why I pulled this all together. How does this metaphor fit with how you've navigated your career and how you see the world?
Well, I must be into jazz music with no sheet music in front of me because I had no plan. Well, I was not ambitious. I'm going to go here kind of person, but part of it being a single mother with three kids, I just had a lot on my plate. But I enjoyed what I did and I worked hard. But what I think that did for me and open up doors is instead of thinking of my next job, and some people are so busy thinking their next job and they're politicking to get to the next job, they don't do their present job.
Wow.
So whatever job I did it fully. And I think the opportunities are going to come to you. So I don't take away from people being ambitious and looking ahead, but don't neglect what you're doing because it's part of the foundation and the relationships you're building there, and learn it fully. One of the jobs that I had at Jack was being manager over the barrel warehouse department. And of course, I'm just kind of generalizing here, but most people just thought of going to barrel warehouse and as a stopping point so they could go somewhere else in a lot of different distilleries. Nobody was seeing that as a real job. It's just, I do this so I can say I've been at the barrel warehouse manager. Me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best place. I am surrounded by barrels that are aging and sampling those. And I'd already been in QC. I was the one sampling barrels, determining what to be dumped. And then to go and be managing the guys putting the barrels in the warehouse, dumping it. I loved it. So I put in a lot of programs because I was content there. I wasn't looking for the next job. So I ended up doing a cost savings project. It was a $38 million cost savings project. This was probably in 2000. But if I had only looked at it as a stepping stone rather than a place that I embraced, I would have never come up with those projects. And they were all simple projects in a lot of ways, but you had to know it. Yeah. So I encourage people to, whatever job they're in, to embrace it. If they don't like it, embrace it and learn everything you can, because all the relationships and what you learn there are valuable for the next job.
Not only does it make sense, that there is so much wisdom there, because to your point, I see so many people who are so concerned about the next job that they don't do the job that they have in front of them. And one of my mentors I talk about a lot died, I believe, in 2002, a guy by the name of Stan Hutchin. And he was famous for saying the most important customer you got is the customer you got. And how do you take care of what's right in front of you rather than putting all this effort and attention into something that you don't even have yet? And that just seems to come from that same stock of wisdom.
Now, one thing I want to add is I was also offered an executive coach. Several people were, and a lot of them didn't want her. I loved having an executive coach. So she worked with me for probably 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And oh, how valuable that was. We usually met either by phone or in person once a month.
Yeah.
And just that level of accountability, because in a lot of ways, she didn't have answers for my problems, but she made sure in between visits that I had worked on that answer and I could tell her what I was looking for. So the accountability of an executive coach, not only was she good, but that accountability was wonderful for me. Now, on my personal life, let me go back. I'll go ahead and tell you my age. I'm 67. I started in 1975. I have a trainer. I was there at 6 o'clock this morning, not because I'm disciplined, but because I need accountability, because I would not have worked out. And then I went to hot yoga. I could do yoga at home. Am I? No. But if I have, but the accountability, so I have realized that I have got to make myself accountable, because I could be lazy. I could be unfocused. And somebody said, I'm disciplined. I go, no, I'm not disciplined. I said, if I was disciplined, I wouldn't need a trainer. I said, I know myself. I'm holding myself accountable so that if I don't come, she's going to send me a text. Same thing with my yoga class. And that's what I found in business, that you do need that mentor. You need somebody that holds you accountable. Even to the point, I hope I'm not talking too much, but one of the things I did was on my goals, KPIs, whatever you want to call them, you can sit with your boss and you can really kind of, I hope I don't mind me saying this, you can kind of bullshit and go, well, I didn't get this done because so-and-so, so-and-so. But I got to where I took my goals and I typed an update, because to type, I didn't do this because I've been lazy, couldn't do it. So what I would do is I would start a week ahead of time before I was meeting with him, and I made sure I met with him quarterly. I would sit there and I would go set that meeting up, and then I would type, I've got the meeting set up. And I found that if I typed, rather than doing a verbal update, if I typed him my version of the update, not that it was the final one, it was another form of accountability.
Yeah.
So I always try to keep myself available for somebody to correct me and for that accountability, and not to bullshit about why I didn't do something.
Hey, it's not too late. Hit that subscribe button so you're sure to catch the next episode. If you're really enjoying the vibe, leave us a review or become a VIP for guest and show exclusives. Cheers.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.